Thank you for joining. Please help us to grow by liking and subscribing. Picture this. You're relaxing at home, scrolling through your phone, sipping from a plastic water bottle, and eating some takeout wrapped in that crinkly film. It all feels totally normal, right? After all, who doesn't do that on a lazy afternoon? But what if I told you that right now, tiny shards of plastic smaller than a grain of sand are entering your bloodstream, your organs, and even your brain? This is real life in 2025. Recent studies have found microplastics in human brain tissue, and some samples contain the equivalent of a plastic spoon's worth of plastic. These particles can accumulate in the brain at concentrations higher than in other organs, like the liver and kidneys. Moreover, the amounts detected have increased by about 50% between 2016 and 2024. That's concerning, isn't it? If that doesn't make you pause mid-sip, I don't know what will. For this deep dive, we're unpacking one of the most unsettling environmental stories out there. By the end, you'll not only know why this matters, but you'll also understand what you can do to fight back. Let's jump in. Okay, let's rewind a bit. Do you remember the 1950s? That was when plastic became widely used. Although it was invented back in the early 1900s, plastic really took off after World War II. It was cheap, versatile, and suddenly everywhere. Think about Tupperware parties, shiny toys, and those indestructible lunchboxes we all grew up with. We praise plastics as a miracle workers because they were lightweight, durable, and useful from everything from medicine to packaging. Scientists even won Nobel Prizes for their innovations. Companies raked in billions, and our lives became easier in ways we couldn't imagine. No more leaky glass jars or rusty cans, just widespread appreciation for this game-changing invention. But we didn't see the dark side coming at all. By the 1970s, environmentalists started raising concerns about pollution, with rivers choked by plastic bags and beaches littered with bottles. Fast forward to the 2000s, and scientists coined the term microplastics. These aren't the big, obvious chunks you might picture. Instead, they're fragments under 5 millimeter. Primary microplastics come straight from factories. For example, the microbeads in your face scrub, while secondary ones form when bigger plastics break down, like your old water bottle crumbling under the sun and waves. Events really picked up around 2018. That's when Austrian researchers found microplastics in human poop. Yeah, you read that right. It was everywhere, even there. From that moment, the discoveries kept coming. We started finding them in lungs, in blood, placentas, and even breast milk. By 2023, the Minderoo Monaco Commission on Plastics and Human Health released a massive report. It concluded that plastics harm us at every stage, from the moment we make them to the time we just toss them away. Production has doubled since 2002, and it's on track to double again by 2040. That's a serious trend. It's not all negative. Let's give a shout out to the real heroes here. The researchers grinding away in labs, the activists protesting at oil rigs, and everyday folks organizing beach cleanups. We made real strides too, like banning microbeads in cosmetics across more than 80 countries. That's genuine progress worth celebrating. But doubts still linger. Is this just all hype? The American Chemistry Council, which represents the plastic industry, argues that the FDA hasn't found any proven risks from microplastics in food. That's a fair point. Science isn't fully settled yet. However, when brain tissues show high levels of plastic particle, that's the moment we have to pay attention. Consider your brain as this command setter, a squishy, fatty organ that runs thoughts, your dreams, and even that playlist you made last week. It's protected by the blood brain barrier, which keeps toxins out. It seems like a solid defense, doesn't it? Well, unfortunately, that's not the case. It turns out that microplastics and their even tinier counterparts, nanoplastics, which are under 1 micrometer and smaller than a COVID virus, are getting past that barrier. The big reveal came in 2024, and it made headlines everywhere, like human brain samples contain an entire spoon's worth of nanoplastics. Researchers from the University of New Mexico, led by Matthew Campen, examined autopsy samples from 2016 and 2024. What they uncovered was staggering. Brain tissue contained 4,800 micrograms of plastic per gram, or 0.48% by weight. That's equivalent to a whole standard plastic spoon's worth in your brain. And when they compared it to samples from 2016, they saw a 50% jump. As Campen put it, that would mean that our brains today are 99.5% brain matter and the rest is plastic. That's a stark finding. The team also compared brains to other organs like the kidneys and livers, which are good at filtering out junk. Shockingly, the brain had 7 to 30 times more plastic than those organs. Why does this happen? Brains are about 60% fat, and plastics bind to fats. They hitch a ride on the lipids we eat, slipping through the blood-brain barrier via proteins or the lymphatic system. For a vivid picture, just imagine tiny plastic particles traveling along with the fats from your meals, making their way into brain tissue. But here's a key detail. Many of these samples came from folks around 45 to 50 years old who led normal lives. Think office jobs, family barbecues, and Netflix binges. There was no big drama, just everyday exposure to plastic. Now consider the dementia cases. In 12 brains from the people who had battled the disease, researchers found 3 to 5 times more shards. These were clustered in artery walls and immune cells. Campen offered some caution, though. It's a little bit alarming, but remember that dementia impairs the brain's cleanup crew. Plastics might pile up because of the disease, not the other way around, he said. That's a balanced take. It's an exciting find, but we don't have a smoking gun yet. Of course, doubts are part of the picture. Plenty of experts point them out. Phoebe Stapleton from Reuters notes that it's unclear if these particles get stuck forever or if they flush out like a kidney stone. Ouch! Plus, the methods used might overestimate the amounts. Campen's team even admits they're working to refine their precision by next year. As for health links, scientists are exploring potential ties to neurological diseases, heart issues, fertility problems, and even multiple sclerosis. Plastics act like carriers, bringing chemicals such as biphenyl and phthalates and PFAS that mess with the hormones and spark inflammation. The Endocrine Society has linked them to drops in sperm count and birth defects. It's scary, sure, but not fully proven yet. Dr. Philip Lindgren sums it up well. We have enough information here that we need to start taking protective action. Yeah, take some action. And let's pause for some well-deserved praise. Kudo to Campen and his team for this gritty work. I mean, dissecting brains isn't glamorous, but it's game-changing. Their paper in Nature Medicine serves as a wake-up call wrapped in solid data. All right, let's examine the paths these plastic particles take from their starting point all the way to your brain. It's a straightforward process, but one that's worth understanding. First, ingestion, the main route. You swallow these particles every day. Estimates say about 1.8 grams a week, which is more than the credit card's weight. Bottled water is a prime culprit. A single liter can pack 240,000 particles, with 90% being nanoplastics. They're also in seafood, table salt, and even apples, filtering up the food chain from contaminated soil and air. For a quick story, meet Sarah, a barista in Seattle. She swaps her morning smoothie for farm fresh kale, thinking it's the cleanest choice. But nope, that kale grew in soil laced with tire dust and fragrance from mulch films. And mulch films, those are those thin plastic sheets farmers spread over the ground to suppress weeds and hold in moisture. And eventually, they break down into microplastics over time. Down it goes, particles and all. Next, inhalation, the second major route. Take a deep breath. Fresh air, but not quite. Tires abrading on roads spew microplastics into the sky, and ocean waves kick them up near coasts. Even indoor dust from synthetic fabrics play a role. So whether you're driving on the highway or taking a beach walk, you're inhaling these particles. Finally, the key step, crossing the blood-brain barrier. These tiny bits are the right size, 100 to 200 nanometers, to slip through the cracks. They bind to transporters meant for nutrients or tag along through the lymph system. As Campen theorizes, he says, plastics hitch a ride with fats we eat, heading straight to fat-loving organs like the brain. For a clear visual, picture plastic particles floating along with omega-3s from your food reaching your brain cells. A quick history lesson. We knew about ocean plastics since the 1970s with those early plastic soup alerts, but the human invasion ramped up after 2018 when we detected them in blood. Events like the 2023 Commission report tied it all together, from factory fumes to your fridge. Looking to the future, with production still booming, our exposures will keep climbing unless we decide to pivot. The brain findings are striking, but let's not pivot to something closer to home. This isn't just a brain issue. Plastics are affecting our entire planet. Have you ever wondered why your garden veggies might taste a tad off? You can blame the soil for that. Studies show microplastics infiltrating farmland soils at levels that would make any gardener pause, especially in compost, that nutrient-rich black gold we spread to boost plant growth, which can harbor up to 6.6 grams of plastic per kilogram of dry matter due to contamination from household organic waste like food scraps tangled with plastic bag wrappers, or even these compostable items that don't fully break down, often sneaking in through sloppy sorting at home or processing plants. This turns a soil amendment meant to heal the earth into a vector for pollution. With recent 2025 studies clocking particle counts from 1,100 to 2,700 per kilogram in such waste and average up to 6,400 particles per kilogram in finished compost. How does that happen? It comes from mulch films, irrigation pipes, and even those compostable bags that don't fully break down. Even worms. Worms make it worse. They munch and mix the soil, spreading the particles deeper. As a result, earthworms stunt their growth or even die, sending ripples up to birds, frogs, and eventually us. Let me share a quick story. Jake is a backyard composter in Ohio, and he prides himself on zero waste living. He tosses in kitchen scraps, yard clippings, feeling like a total eco warrior. But oops, that dryer lint is full of plastic fibers, and the biodegradable tea bag, it's a source of nanoplastics. His compost ends up leaching toxins into the soil, where plants suck them up through their roots. Nanoplastics are small enough to get absorbed and even travel to the leaves, and then straight into your salad bowl. The concerns are real. They disrupt soil pH, zap microbes, and cause bioaccumulation of metals and pesticides. Farmland takes the hardest hit, with over 40% of this plastic gear they use never recovered. They just leave it out there, fragmenting into smaller pieces. What about the compost angle? It's a double-edged sword. Composting is fantastic for recycling food waste, sewage sludge, and greens. But contaminated inputs mean unwanted plastic passengers. A 2024 study used advanced TD-GC/MS, it's a technique and a technology, to spot them in leachates. And that's basically what's coming off the compost or a compost tea. And what they found is that fresh compost is loaded with them. And even after 18 months of aging, they remain present. Why should we care? Because it all feeds into the food chain. Let's give praise to the innovators here. Biodegradable alternatives are emerging, but we still need more research and development on their byproducts. Doubts play a role even here. Research on soil is still in its early stages. It's limited when it comes to the effects on microbes or plant uptake. Nanoplastics might break down harmlessly, or they might not. Looking ahead, concentrations will keep rising unless we rethink our waste habits entirely. And tying it back to the brain, it's the same pathways: ingest, inhale, invade. Everything's connected, folks. Let's do a quick balance check. Not everyone's panicking, and that's okay. Industry reps like Kimberly Wise White point out that unvalidated methods can lead to, she says, misleading outcomes. There are variables everywhere. Your diet, location, and genetics all affect health. Campen himself echoes this, and he says, we're cautious correlation isn't causation. The dementia link, for instance, is a likely symptom rather than a trigger. We also know that the liver and kidneys do flush some plastics. Maybe the brain can too. Think about the history of these scares. Remember Y2K, the huge buildup around the fear that computers would crash at midnight on January 1st, 2000 due to a 2-digit date glitch? The payoff, that tense climatic moment after the hype and billions spent on fixes, was expected to bring global chaos, but it ended up being anticlimactic, with systems running smoothly without any major issues. Plastics might follow a path, but the evidence keeps mounting. Placenta findings in 2020, heart plaque in 2024, For the future, we'll see better detectors and long term studies. By 2030, we might even map out the exact harms. Until then, it's all about informed worry, not blind fear. Okay, enough with the gloom. Let's focus on empowerment. Individual actions can be real game changers. Start by ditching plastic bottles and swapping them for glass or metal ones. Remember that 2004 study? Bottled water is basically a particle bomb. Never microwave food in plastic. Always transfer it to a ceramic or glass first. Try eating lower on the food chain, like more veggies and less tuna. If you're into gardening, vet your compost sources carefully. Go for clean ones and skip those compostable fakes. Use fabric bags for shopping, travel mugs for coffee, and even ask your dry cleaner for a zippered fabric bag instead of a plastic wrap. But let's be real, it's tough to take on the world alone. That's where policy comes in as the heavy hitter. We need bans on single use plastics. And shout out to the more than 500 US cities that have already made that move. Push for safer chemicals and better recycling systems. As Landrigan nails it, he says, join forces with other people who care about children's health to push for restrictions on plastic manufacture and for the use of safer chemicals and plastics. Common sense. Looking to the future, if we halve the production and ramp up circular economies where reuse instead of trash, we could slash exposure by 80% by 2040. Let's give praise to trailblazers like the EU with their plastic taxes. Are you in? We've traveled from the 1950s wonder material all the way to 2025's brain findings, weaving through soils and compost, doubts and dreams along the way. It's vivid stuff, man, isn't it? That spoon worth of plastic in your brain isn't some inescapable fate. It's a clear call to action. Plastics revolutionized our lives once. Now it's time to refine them for a better world. Plastics come from fossil fuels, and warming oceans just birth more fragments. Or think about health disparities. Low income areas often drown in waste first. It's a bigger web, but the fix is the same. Less stuff and more care. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Share it with a friend who's maybe mid-sip from a plastic bottle. Then take a moment to audit your kitchen. Pick one plastic habit to ditch today. Drop your swap in the comments below, please. What's yours? Together we can reclaim our brains, our soils, and our seas. What's next? You tell me. Until the next time, peace with you. Bye, everyone.